Again, my name is Patrick Morrison. I did go to MTSU. I went there and graduated with a degree in international relations and then minors in Portuguese and civic engagement. Portuguese was a strange choice for me, but it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed taking certain cultural classes and things like that in my degree. That was a lot of fun. And then at MTSU as well, I was part of the Honors College. I come from Chattanooga, and I went to a small magnet school there. And so I wanted to have a small classroom feel still. So I enrolled in the Honors College. And so I was able to take classes with 15 to 20 students in the class. So it made it a lot more smaller for me, which I loved. And it also, being in the Honors College, got you to enroll, register for classes, I think right after the seniors did. So I felt like I got to pick the better classes and the better times. So I enjoyed that a lot. At MTSU as well, I was in the orchestra as well. So I played cello at MTSU as well. And so a little bit all over the place, and that's okay. It was a lot of fun. So I stuck a lot in the arts and the humanities, but because I wanted to be a very well-rounded person. And so I wanted to have different exposure to different things, but also different groups of people all throughout campus rather than finding a tunnel, and that's where I stayed. So I was a little bit exposed to everything. After MTSU, I went to the Great Smoky Mountains to go to the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. So I do have the blue and the orange. So it's nice to have both of those colors in the state. And that's where I went to law school. So I was there for 3 years. And I went to, does anyone have an interest in law? Or you think, just a couple hands. Okay, cool. Being a lawyer is awesome. I love it. I think lawyers are typically looked to be leaders. And so if you like being right and telling people why you're right and having the background and the facts to support your argument, this might be a good field for you. It's always fun to look up cases and different facts and figure out exactly why you're right, and then you get to convince someone why you're right. And so that's always a lot of fun. And so I knew coming out of high school that I wanted to go to law school. I didn't know what type of law that I wanted to practice. I just always thought, I wanted to help people. That's what I wanted to do. I was I just want to help people. I want to try to change the world. But I always knew that I wanted to eventually end up back in Chattanooga, in my hometown. That's where I wanted to practice. And so after law school, I moved back to Chattanooga to work for a law firm there for a couple of years. And I did a little bit of everything. I like to say that I was a little bit of a master of none, but pretty good at everything. So our firm did everything from business stuff. So let's say you've got an idea and you want to start a business. There's certain requirements, whether that's the state requirements or federal, so US requirements from the government that you have to follow. So you would come to me and I would figure out how to start a business for you. Or if I did have to go to court a couple times because someone did drink alcohol and then they drove. And so they got arrested for that. So I did have to go to court for that, not me personally, but I had to go for a client. So there was that as well. And then there was also some families that we helped out that had some immigration issues that involved the federal government. So a little bit all over the place, but very fun. So I was in the courtroom essentially every day. And so it was tiring on my part because I had to be in a suit every day. Whereas now I work from home, so I'm mostly in sweatpants and a dress shirt up top. And so a little different now, but back then I at least had a suit in my office ready to go to the courthouse at any minute because emergencies do happen. You have to go before a judge like that, so you want to be professional. And so I always liked it. I always on Tuesdays, I would do bow tie Tuesdays. I always thought that was very, very fun. And so that was private practice. It was a lot of long hours, but I felt like I was able to impact a lot of people and I was able to work with a lot of people. But being at MTSU, I always liked Nashville. And I don't know if y'all remember when you were young, Middle Tennessee was a lot different than it is now. And so I always felt a draw to come back to Middle Tennessee. And so about 5 years ago, I moved back to Nashville and have been working for the state ever since. And so I now currently work for the Treasury Department. And so that involves money. And so you think about investments, you think about retirement accounts, like pension accounts. very, very glamorous things like that that we're all a long ways away from ever receiving those types of benefits. I'm nowhere near retiring. I wish I was retiring tomorrow, but I'm nowhere near it. But we handle retirement accounts and like investing money to gain money on those investments. And so that is fascinating. So our department handles all of that. So you would never think about how the state has assets and how it has to grow. Like you want to grow your bank account, for example. You want to have more money than what's in there. And so the Tennessee Treasury Department does that and handles that for the state. And so state employees, for example, have retirement accounts. And so when I'm like 30 years from now, I'll be able to get a retirement account based off what I'm doing now. MTSU employees will have a retirement account based off of what is happening in my job right now. So that's always very exciting. And so my job consists of a lot of research, a lot of drafting contracts, which may not sound very glamorous to you, but it's a lot of, lawyers are very good at using their words. So like English majors and things can typically be very good lawyers because wordsmithing is very important. So a word can change the whole meaning of an entire paragraph. And it's incredibly frustrating for my wife, who is not a lawyer, because I'll pay attention to one word she says, and I'll say, did you mean it this way, or did you mean it this way? So it's incredibly frustrating for her, but that's just how my brain works and how lawyers' brains typically work. So coming from all of this, I was told about this Humanities Academy, which I did not participate in one all those years ago, but I wish I had. And because it sounds like it's a good pathway to figuring other things out. And so Lucy here was telling me about a couple skills that the pathways try to introduce to their students. And I would say the takeaways that I have from being at MTSU and then being a lawyer is through my degree from the liberal arts college, I was able to, one, communicate with a ton of other people. And so in my political science classes, I'm talking about like mock trial stuff, Model UN, if y'all are familiar with those types of programs. So like debate, but we're also talking about like comparative politics. So you're looking at different types of governance in different countries, things like these are smaller classes. And so a lot of group projects. Some people feel a certain way about group projects. I personally love group projects because being a lawyer is one giant group project. You're never just truly by yourself. I work on a team of 5 other attorneys. We have some contract folk within our team as well. And so we're always collaborating. And that was one skill that MTSU and my degree helped me with, because I was constantly working with other people across campus that I wouldn't have met otherwise through the classes I was taking. And so that built into collaboration. Because again, I wanted to be exposed to a ton of things. And so I wanted to be exposed to a ton of people, a ton of different cultures, and just different mindsets. And that's important because when you get at the negotiation table as a lawyer, you're dealing with not just me. You're talking about other people's, what they're bringing to the table as well. And also, it takes a lot of creativity. And so a lot of our classes that I had at MTSU really let us figure out our own path. Like you had a research topic, but then you figured out how you wanted to get there. But also with my honors, so through the honors college, you do a capstone project, which I think I'd heard that through this, they'll do a capstone as well. And so I had to do an honors thesis, which is a big capstone. And it's at your wish of what you want to do with that. And so it's very creative, but also collaborative. And so that was just some good things that I took away from my time in the liberal arts department. How was law school? It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of hard work. So I also, in another role, I'm an adjunct instructor at MTSU as well. I'm in the political science department. And I was talking about this last night with some of my students. Law school is essentially like trying to drink water from a fire hydrant. It's a lot of information and it's a lot of work. But the more you get used to it, the fire hydrant's turning off. And so you're figuring out how to adjust to the level of knowledge. Because it changes the way you think about things. We all think there's a black and white, I mean, growing up, at least the way I was, there's a black and white answer to things. Yes or no. If you've ever asked, has anyone ever interacted with a lawyer or watched lawyer shows? The typical answer is, it depends, is always the answer that a lawyer gives. Is, oh, well, is this legal? Well, what are the facts? What's it matter? And so the law school teaches your brain how to never really know the right answer, but at least how to find it, if that makes sense. So I love it because I love puzzles and figuring things out, but it's just a complete different way of thinking. It's not just a matter of go to class, take a test, you're done. It's a lot of go to class. You can have simulations where you mimic client relationships. You can participate in clinics and in law school that actually give you real life clients to learn and practice and really help people that way as well. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of work, but a lot of fun. Yeah.
How did you decide what kind of law you want to study?
I'm still figuring it out. You know, I did not go to law school thinking I would be practicing retirement law. I did not ever think that I'd be doing that. But in my current role, I do contracts, human resources work, all that kind of stuff that blends a lot of my previous backgrounds. In law school, I just wanted to take as much as I can to hopefully figure out something. And then if it's not for me, it's not for me. And so I took as many classes as I could, different types of classes, because you get to pick your own classes your second and third year of law school. So I got to be exposed to immigration, to employment law, to family law, to wills and estates, like if someone dies and has assets, to figure out what happens then. So I wanted to expose myself as much as I could, because I'm not the type of person that likes to wonder what if. I want to try something out, and if it's not for me, cool. On to the next thing. And so then I was lucky enough to go to that firm in Chattanooga where I was exposed to everything. And that was really good. And they were very fortunate and lucky to guide me. And they're like, Patrick, you want to try something out? Try it. If you don't like it, let us know, and we won't give you that type of work anymore. But you know, it's something that's okay to have no clue. Even I'm 8, 9 years in, and I'm still finding out what I like.
And that's true of a lot of professions, I'll just tell you. You're not going to come out the first year and probably find the thing you're going to love the most in your whole life.
But it is, I think, how we train them to think. We often tell students to figure out what you want, and that's where you go.
That's right.
And that's just not really the way, I had 3 majors in college because I love this philosophy.
Yeah.
Like, just try things, just try things. And it all comes back. Yeah.
But it all works out. It ends up sort of coming together for you. So just go to the next right things, what I used to say, whatever's out there that's offered you.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun because I never thought I'd be passionate about retirement law. It's not something that people are necessarily passionate about, but it's something that I find a lot of passion in because we have, think about all the state employees that have retired throughout the state. So you're talking teachers, firefighters, police officers, football coaches, all these people across the state, they will retire. And how can they get the most out of their employment and out to be able to retire and live comfortably? And that is, I like to be passionate about that because that's what I want to do one day. I want to live comfortably after I've worked really hard and then can go travel around and do whatever. And so I like that because we're there to actively help people. And so at the end of the day, even though I'm doing something completely different than I went to law school, the common denominator for all of this is I wanted to go to law school and I also wanted to help people. And so I'm still doing that and still staying true to my original goals. Yep. It's a good question. It really depends on the years of experience. I've seen some attorneys that I started out with out of law school started out around $50,000. Some started off at $200,000. So it depends on location. It depends on the size of firm. So like bigger firms will have a lot larger overhead and can afford to pay people a lot more money. But those types of firms are also dealing with a lot bigger clients. So right now in Nashville, it's fascinating from a legal market standpoint because all these big global law firms are moving to Nashville. And so you've got offices from London, Hong Kong, all of those types of firms having presence here in Nashville. And so that's very exciting for the legal community because if they're able to pay more, these other firms have to pay more too. Otherwise, all the talent's going to go to these bigger firms. So the competition is there, and at least, so when I started law school, there was a downturn in the job market for lawyers. You could take a couple months to find a job. That is not there at the moment. There's a heavy need for lawyers and just legal professionals in general, so paralegals, just contract drafters, that type of stuff. There's a huge need because the growth is there, especially in Middle Tennessee as well. It's booming, and Murfreesboro is growing so fast. Like this is crazy over here. Yeah.
Would you recommend honors colleges to like the vast majority of people?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I loved the MTSU Honors College. It was, so in MTSU, at least, I don't know if they still do it this way, but the upperclassmen got to register for classes first. So, but honor students are right there at the top of the list to register for classes. So I wanted the best classes. I didn't want to have classes 8 a.m. every day of the week. So that was my biggest priority, was that benefit. But then I loved the smaller class size. I liked that because my teachers knew who I was. I did have a couple classes that were in the hundreds of people, and that's okay. But I'm not a science person, and that was a science class, and there was no way I wanted to talk to the professor, really, because I don't do science. I am not a science person whatsoever. But I remember my freshman English professor at MTSU, I was in her office all the time. She was helping me go through drafts of papers, giving me critiques. Same with my theater appreciation professor. I remember staying after class and talking to him about all of his world travels. So I felt like I got to know the professor so much more because of the Honors College. So then by the time you're in those upper level classes, those are smaller classes anyway, smaller class sizes. And so I've gotten that habit of myself of wanting to make sure that I am not just a face in a seat. I want them to know my name. I want them to know who I am and know my story, because it's possible that they may have to help me at some point down the road, because for law school, you need letters of recommendation from professors. And so I had to figure out who was going to be that. And the only people that are going to do that are the people that know you. And so Honors College is a great way to catapult you into having a very thorough experience, I think, of having that face-to-face interaction.
I have a question just about from your experience from undergrad to law school, right? Was that an immediate thing that you graduated and jumped right in? Did you take some time off? How did you structure your life experience?
Oh, that's a very good question. So the typical, what a lot of people do is they go to 4 years of undergrad and then they go to 3 years of law school. So 7 years of school back to back. You've also already been doing school from kindergarten to senior year. So you've been in school a lot. I took about 10 months off. And I got to do things during that year. I worked with the General Assembly, so the state legislature. So I needed a full-time job because I needed to pay rent and get grocery money, that kind of stuff. But I wanted to do some stuff because at that point, I was fortunate enough to graduate from MTSU with no student loans. And so I felt like I could do things that could be a little risky, like driving from Murfreesboro to Nashville every day to work with the General Assembly for not a lot of money, but it was enough for me to get by. But my education enabled me to do that, to where I took a little bit of time, took a little bit of a risk to do some career stuff, because I knew after law school, I was gonna be a lawyer forever. Like that's my life now. I'm very happy with that life, but I did take a little bit of time. There were a couple of people that I went to law school with that took time off and worked in various fields. Like there were people in marketing and that were teachers. A couple of people were nurses and in other professions. And so you don't have to go straight away. If I could go back in time, I would possibly take another year off to really kind of go around, like maybe go teach English abroad or something somewhere that I could do these crazy things that now I unfortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, can't do, because I do have student loans and bills to pay and a wife and 2 dogs at home. So I've got those things to handle with. But I do, if I could go back, I might consider taking a little bit of time off because law school will always be there.
I think there was a question in the back.
It's kind of like an odd question. But do you feel like being a lawyer, it, to actually get high, like a good lawyer instead of say, the 50K versus 200K, you need a lot of, money, or to say, you need to come from a good, economic standing.
So are you saying to be in the upper standing, you need to come from the upper standing?
Yeah, or kind of you need a lot of wealth to get more up there to make these connections. So would it be harder for someone
Yeah.
to have that much to get there?
I think there's some validity to that, in my own personal opinion, because the connections do matter. I don't have a single lawyer in my family. I come from a small town outside of Chattanooga where most people don't go to college. Most people don't go to law school, definitely. So I didn't have any of those connections. And so I felt like I just had to grind it out. And so I was able to make connections. So the thing is, I'm not going to be the smartest person in the room. I'm not going to be the wittiest person in the room. But if I'm in the room, you're going to know who I am. I'm going to interact with you. You're going to want me on your team, because that's something that I've always been able to, is being on. I'm a good team player. And so you're going to want to work with me because I'm going to be on that team with you. And so I felt like I had to grind a little bit more. There were definitely people in my law school class that got the jobs that they did because of who they knew. And unfortunately, it's just that's how cards are stacked sometimes. But there are some other people in my law school class that came from much worse backgrounds than I did. And I came from a very middle class background, but they came from much worse, and they're making way more money than I ever will. Because their grind, the grit, the mentality that they had to succeed, they're absolutely killing it. Some have moved to LA, works for one of the biggest firms in the country. They probably make $400,000+ a year. I'll never see that money, and I'm okay with that. But the way that they were able to grit and grind, it was impressive. I mean, in law school, you're filled with so many people. There's one particular woman who I think is incredibly inspiring. This was her second career. She wanted to go back to law school after she had had a full career, I think, in banking. She had 3 kids. She got pregnant during law school. She got, I think, possibly divorced in law school. She had so much going on. But she was editor of the Law Review, which is one of the most prestigious things that you can do in a law school. She graduated law school in the top 5 of our class. I wasn't up there. And then she ended up going to one of the most prestigious law firms. And she just had that determination that she was not going to be beat despite what setbacks that she may have felt like she had. Incredibly inspiring. And I really looked up to her for that. Because here I am, 21, 22, going to law school and feeling like I don't have those hurdles or obstacles or additional things to bring with me, but that grit and determination can really make a difference.